Joining me right now, GOP political strategist, also co-founder of MustReadTexas.com. It's Matt Mackowiak. Matt, good morning. How are you?
Hey, Chad. Good morning. I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Thanks for coming on today. Let's talk Donald Trump and the election. Over the weekend, there was a story, I think it originated with BuzzFeed, and then it moved on to Washington Post, Politico. But it's the Trump campaign maybe softening their language when it comes to illegal immigration and the deportation force. Trump indicating apparently that they're not yet sold on a deportation force, that they may not deport the 11 million illegal immigrants in this country. Is this Donald Trump just trying to woo some voters? Is this Donald Trump evolving on this, or is this Donald Trump maybe moving to a position that is more plausible? Or do we know what Donald Trump is doing?
Man, that's a good question. And, this stems from a meeting of his Hispanic Advisory Board, which met up with him in New York City. I think it was on Thursday. It might have been Friday, late last week. So he had a conversation with that group, which was 20 or 25 people. And I guess something leaked from that meeting. Now, you had Jeff Sessions and others on the talk shows over the weekend saying, no, nothing's changed, nothing to be concerned about. But Trump has obviously talked about handling the immigration enforcement piece of this as, quote, humanely as possible. So, look, he's not been all that specific. Now, I'm told he's going to give an immigration speech probably in Nevada or Arizona this week that may detail more of this. So, kind of remains to be seen. But, look, it's never been plausible to literally build a deportation force and send them to go identify and deport 11 million people. The cost itself would be enormous. It obviously would break up families, hugely disruptive. Would just be pretty ugly, I think, in a lot of ways. You could sort of have the same thing happen, at least in a much more humane way, if you just shut down the illegal hiring that exists across the country. So, look, he has had a lot of rhetoric about immigration. He hasn't had these policy specifics. And obviously, the primary, he didn't pay a price for being, sort of vague about the policy specifics. But in the general election, that's what matters, because that's what policy stems from in the new administration. So a lot of people care about the specifics here. He's never been someone that's cared that much about the specifics. So it's not clear whether this is him intentionally softening more Hispanic votes. Obviously, if he does that, he would risk, this identity that he's built up of being a real immigration hardliner. So, in my view, he's really in kind of a lose-lose situation, and I don't know what he's going to do going forward.
You've been critical online of the Trump campaign. Last week, what did you think about it? Was it a good week for Donald Trump? I mean, he's going to string a lot of good weeks together if he wants to overcome what we at least see in the polls, especially in your swing states. But was last week good? Is this what Republicans, and this is what maybe independents and those who are undecided, is that the Donald Trump we need to see, the Trump from this past week?
Yeah, and listen, I mean, I'm trying to call balls to strikes here as fairly as possible. When things have gone poorly, I've said so. When things are going well, I have no problem admitting that either. I do think he had a pretty good week last week. Looks like he's now becoming much more confident in giving speeches off a teleprompter and sticking to a scripted message. He criticizes Obama and Hillary for doing that, but he's now doing that pretty consistently himself. I'm glad he's doing that. Stakes are too high to make it up as you go along at a campaign rally for 45 minutes. We can't have him create controversies anymore. And he didn't really do that last week. Going to Louisiana was very good, I thought. Had great pictures. There's some uncertainty about whether he actually donated to the relief fund or not. I've seen pictures of him unloading a relief truck with Mike Pence. So that seems to be fairly confirming to me anyway. And then the speeches he gave I thought were good. I would have liked him perhaps a more specific apology, but that's not really how he does things. And so the fact that he did apologize for causing personal pain with some of his comments I thought was a good first step. He's obviously made more of a pitch towards African Americans in trying to make clear that he wants to win their votes, that he wants to improve their lives. I think a more sustained effort, which would be something that would benefit him, something where he does some roundtables and some listening sessions, and then follows that up with a very thoughtful policy speech on how to improve the lives of Black Americans across the country. Something similar to what Rick Perry did in the primary. One of the most interesting speeches of this entire campaign was one he gave the National Press Club about how to improve the lives of African Americans. Talked about systemic racism and talked about improving economic opportunity for African Americans. So, look, again, I mean, I think we have to remember the way we evaluate politics for Trump is a little bit of a sliding scale. When he doesn't have a terrible week, it can look like a good week. But I do think, again, I think for the most part, he had a pretty good week last week. Obviously, there was a shakeup. I have some real concerns about Steve Bannon being in a senior role. But he does appear to be more disciplined and more focused. Let's see if he can keep it going. I'm concerned that he's wasting time in Texas this week, and then he's wasting time in Mississippi doing public rallies in Austin and in Jackson, Mississippi on Wednesday, which I think is just insane with 80 days left. But we'll see. The polls do appear to be slightly tightening, and we'll see if he can keep up a discipline.
Does he, you bring up Texas, and I think he's going to be in Texas tomorrow, give that rally down in Austin. Is this a reaction from that Triple P poll, or is this something that was maybe planned in advance and it's something that just doesn't make any sense? Because I really doubt that Texas is in play.
Oh, I agree. I don't think it's in play, and I saw that poll had a 6-point margin. That's a Democratic firm, PPP. I don't think it's that close, but even still, if it's 6 or 8 points, given the historical trends in Texas, I don't think it's competitive. No, this was scheduled, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I think what's happening is their fundraising team is setting up fundraising events, and Trump is only willing to do fundraising if he's also able to hold a public rally everywhere he goes. And that's why he's doing them in Connecticut and Maine and, all over the place, California, states that are not even competitive, in any scenario, let alone the political reality that we have today. So he just doesn't appear to be willing to go to a town and do a fundraiser and then leave, which is kind of crazy because that's how we should be doing things with 80 days left. He would be better off taking 2 hours and resting, doing a policy briefing, doing a quiet, meeting somewhere, doing a million other things, debate prep, doing conference calls with donors. Those would all be much more productive uses of his time than doing a public rally in Austin, in the most liberal city in one of the reddest states in the country. It just doesn't make any sense, and it's a waste of his time. And he doesn't have time to waste with 79 days until the election.
Visiting with Matt Mackowiak. Matt, you brought up that you were concerned about Steve Bannon. Last week it was a good week for Trump, and it goes along with that shakeup. Who had the influence then on those speeches and just the week overall? Was it Bannon, or were there others involved in that?
That's a good question. My sense is that this has been much more a reflection of Kellyanne Conway, the pollster and senior advisor who's been elevated to campaign manager. Look, these titles are kind of weird. Until Manafort left last week, they had a campaign chairman, a campaign CEO, and a campaign manager. It sounds to me like Bannon is more of the manager in the sense that he's overseeing the staff, overseeing the budget, and he's kind of handling things from the New York headquarters. Kellyanne is kind of traveling with Trump and is helping develop these messages that he's using on the trail. And she's been presenting polling to him. It's kind of moved him in the direction that he's headed. So, these titles don't exactly fit the roles, but I think Kellyanne Conway is the one that's had the most significant influence on him. We don't really know yet what Bannon is doing and what impact he's having. But in terms of the language that Trump's having on the trail, I really think that's Kellyanne Conway. If the more you see Trump sharpen his attacks on Hillary, I think that's going to be more of a reflection on Bannon. I think he really wants to go after Hillary very aggressively, and that's something Trump wants to do as well.
Matt, what can people find on Must Read Texas throughout this week?
Yeah, obviously we'll have all the coverage of Trump's visit to Texas. As far as I know, he's got 3 things in Austin and 1 in Fort Worth, a fundraiser at lunch on Tuesday, and then he's doing a taping with Hannity in Austin, followed by a fundraiser downtown, and then a rally at a kind of a small arena in East Austin in the evening. So we'll have full coverage of Trump's visit to Texas on Tuesday, and there's some previews of that already up on mustreadtexas.com.
All right, Matt, as always, appreciate your time. Have a good week.
Take care. See ya.
That's Matt Mackowiak. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Mackowiak.